The wind howled between the skyscrapers, transforming the narrow alley into a frozen wind tunnel, -23 degrees, and dropping. I could feel it in my bones, in the way my marrow seemed to crystallize with each ragged breath. My exhales plumed in the darkness, brief ghosts that dissipated into nothingness, just like I would soon. Snowflakes stung my face, the only part of me still capable of feeling pain. The rest had gone numb hours ago. My fingers, curled inside threadbare gloves with the tips cut off, had stopped burning and now felt like foreign objects attached to my hands. Artists' hands. Useless hands now. The dumpster behind the Hale Plaza Hotel offered minimal shelter from the northeastern gale. I wedged myself deeper between it and the brick wall, pulling my tarp tighter. The plastic crackled brittle in the extreme cold. It would split before morning. Everything broke in this cold. I pressed my back against the metal of the dumpster. A mistake. The cold bit through my layers, t-shirt, sweater, hoodie, coat, as if they were nothing but tissue paper. A whimper escaped my lips, the sound swallowed immediately by the storm. "Keep moving," I whispered to myself, the words catching in my throat. My own voice sounded strange to my ears, distant and hollow. "Keep moving, Maya." But where? The shelters had been full by 4 o'clock. The hospital would just call social services. The police, I shuddered at the thought. Not an option. Not after last time. I forced myself to stand, legs trembling beneath me. My jeans, stiff with ice and grime, crackled as I straightened. The backpack containing everything I owned, sketchbook, pencils, the photograph of my mother, a change of clothes, felt impossibly heavy against my shoulders. The service entrance to the hotel stood 20 feet away, its red exit sign a beacon in the swirling white. Warmth lay behind that door. Life lay behind that door. But so did security guards, cameras, and people who would look at me with that mixture of pity and disgust I'd grown to hate more than the cold itself. I took a step toward it anyway. Then another. My boots crunched through the fresh powder, leaving shallow impressions that were already filling with new snow. The wind cut through me, stealing what little warmth my body still generated. My teeth chattered so violently, I feared they might crack. 5 more steps. The handle of the service door gleamed under the security light. I reached for it, my arm moving as if through molasses. So close. The door burst open. I stumbled backward, nearly losing my balance on the slick pavement. A man in a hotel uniform emerged, dragging a large black garbage bag. He didn't see me at first, his head bent against the wind. When he looked up, he startled. "Jesus Christ!" He clutched his chest. "Where the hell did you come from?" I couldn't answer. My lips had frozen shut, my tongue a useless block of ice behind my teeth. "You can't be here." His initial shock hardened into something more familiar. Annoyance. Disgust. "Go on. Get. Before I call security." He tossed the garbage bag toward the dumpster. It landed with a soft thud in the snow, splitting open at one corner. The man cursed, glanced at me once more with narrowed eyes, then retreated back inside. The heavy door slammed shut with a finality that crushed what little hope I'd been nursing. The cold intensified, as if sensing my despair. I stood there, swaying slightly, staring at the door that represented everything I couldn't have. Warmth, safety, belonging. My eyes burned, the only part of me still capable of generating heat. A sound cut through the howling wind. Faint, so faint I thought I'd imagined it. There it was again. A mewling cry, like a kitten but different. Higher, more desperate. I turned toward the garbage bag the man had tossed. It moved, just slightly, a ripple across its black surface that could have been the wind, but wasn't. "Hello?" My voice cracked, barely audible even to my own ears. The bag shifted again. The cry came louder this time. I dropped to my knees, the snow soaking instantly through my jeans. My fingers, clumsy and numb, tore at the plastic. The material resisted, then gave way suddenly. I peeled it back. A blanket, blue, expensive-looking, bundled around something small. The bundle moved. "Oh my God," I whispered, the words forming clouds in the frigid air. I peeled back the edge of the blanket. A tiny face emerged from the folds, red and wrinkled, eyes squeezed shut, mouth open in a silent scream that became audible as I unwrapped more of the blanket. A baby. Someone had thrown away a baby. No, no, no. I looked around wildly, as if help might materialize from the swirling snow. The alley remained empty. The hotel door firmly shut. Just me and this impossible, terrible discovery. The infant's cries grew stronger, tiny fists punching at the air. So small, so impossibly small against the vastness of the storm. I gathered the bundle into my arms, cradling it against my chest. "Shah! It's okay." The lies fell from my lips automatically. Nothing about this was okay. The baby's face was turning purple around the edges. Hypothermia. I knew the signs too well. "Help!" I screamed toward the hotel. My voice bounced off the brick walls, lost in the wind. "Somebody help us." No response. No one was coming. I looked down at the infant. A boy, I realized. His eyes opened briefly, dark, almost black, before squeezing shut again in protest against the cold and the light and the cruelty of being discarded like trash. "I've got you," I murmured, tucking the blanket more securely around his tiny body. "I won't leave you." As I held him closer, something strange happened. Where our bodies touched, warmth bloomed. Not my warmth. I had none left to give. This heat radiated from him, from his small form, through the blanket and into my frozen chest. The sensation was so foreign, so unexpected, that for a moment I thought I was hallucinating, the final delusion before hypothermia claimed me completely. But the heat was real. It spread from my chest to my shoulders, down my arms. Everywhere the bundle touched, feeling returned in pins and needles. "What are you?" I whispered. The baby's eyes opened again. This time they fixed on mine with an intensity that seemed impossible for a newborn. Those eyes, so dark they absorbed the meager light rather than reflected it. A gust of wind nearly knocked me sideways. The baby wailed, the sound cutting through the night like a siren. I needed to get him somewhere safe, somewhere warm. But where? I struggled to my feet, clutching the infant to my chest. Each step through the deepening snow felt like wading through concrete. My legs threatened to buckle. Only the strange radiating heat from the baby kept me moving forward. The end of the alley seemed miles away. Beyond it lay the main street, with its traffic and pedestrians and people who might help, or might not. Trust was a luxury I'd abandoned months ago, along with my apartment and my pride. "Just a little further," I whispered to the baby, unsure if I was reassuring him or myself. A siren wailed in the distance. Police or ambulance, I couldn't tell. Either meant questions I couldn't answer. What was I doing with a newborn? Where had I found him? Why hadn't I called 911 immediately? I ducked behind a row of trash cans, pressing my back against the icy brick wall. The baby squirmed against me. His cries softer now but still persistent. His tiny face had regained some color, not the alarming purple from before, but not healthy either. I know, I murmured, rocking him gently. I'm trying to figure this out. The logical part of my brain, the part not yet frozen, knew what I should do. Flag down a car, find a police officer, get this child to a hospital. But something held me back. The way he'd been discarded, the unnatural heat emanating from his small body, the intensity in those two dark eyes, and selfishly, shamefully, the warmth. His warmth was the only thing keeping death at bay for both of us. I peered around the trash cans. The siren grew louder, then faded as the vehicle passed the alley without turning in. Relief and disappointment warred within me. The snow was falling faster now, erasing my footprints almost as quickly as I made them. I needed to make a decision. Hospital. I would take him to the hospital. They would help him, even if they judged me. I stepped out from behind the trash cans and immediately collided with a solid form. "Watch where you're," the man's voice cut off abruptly as he registered my appearance. His eyes narrowed, taking in my filthy coat, my blue-tinged face. Then his gaze dropped to the bundle in my arms. He wore an expensive-looking overcoat and carried a leather briefcase. A businessman, probably heading to his car after working late. His face was angular, handsome in a severe way, with dark hair swept back from a high forehead. "What have you got there?" His tone was conversational, but something in his eyes made my arms tighten around the baby. I tried to step around him. He moved to block my path. "Doesn't look like nothing." He nodded toward the bundle. "Looks like a baby. I'm taking him to the hospital." I tried to sound confident, authoritative. My voice betrayed me, cracking on the last word. "Are you now?" The man smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Funny place to find a baby. Behind the Hale Plaza Hotel, a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature ran down my spine. How did he know exactly where I'd found the child? Let me pass. I hated how weak I sounded, how frightened. "I don't think so." He reached for the bundle. "That doesn't belong to you." I jerked back, nearly slipping on the icy pavement. "Don't touch him." The baby wailed, sensing my distress. As his cries echoed off the alley walls, the man's expression changed. Surprise, then calculation. "He's alive," he murmured, more to himself than to me. Extraordinary. I didn't understand what he meant, but every instinct screamed danger. I feinted left, then darted right, trying to slip past him. His hand shot out, grabbing my arm with impossible strength. His fingers dug into my bicep, bruising even through my layers of clothing. "Let go." I struggled against his grip, but it was like fighting against steel. "Give me the child," he said, his voice calm despite my struggles. "He's valuable property." "He's not property." I kicked at his shin, connecting solidly. He didn't even flinch. "You have no idea what he is." The man's grip tightened. "Or what I'll do to get him back." The world narrowed to this moment. Me, the stranger with the cruel grip, and the infant between us. The baby's cries grew louder, more frantic. With each wail, the heat radiating from him intensified, burning through the blanket and into my chest. "Please," I begged, my voice barely audible over the howling wind. "He needs help. He's just a baby." The man's laugh was cold, devoid of humor. "That is no ordinary child. Hand him over, and I might let you live." His free hand reached for the bundle. I twisted away, using the last of my strength to protect the infant. My back hit the brick wall. Nowhere left to run. "I'll scream," I threatened, though my throat was raw from the cold. "No one will hear you." He leaned closer. I caught a glimpse of something impossible. His eyes flashed red, just for an instant, reflecting the distant streetlight like an animal's. No one will care. The baby suddenly went quiet. The silence was more terrifying than his cries had been. I looked down, fearing the worst. His eyes were open, those impossibly dark eyes, staring not at me but at the man. The heat from his small body surged, no longer comforting but painful against my frozen skin. It felt like holding a hot coal to my chest. The man's hand froze inches from the blanket. Something like fear flickered across his face. "Impossible," he whispered. The baby made a sound, not a cry, but a gurgle that might have been laughter in any other context. The temperature around us dropped even further. My breath crystallized in the air, each exhale creating a cloud of ice particles that hung suspended before shattering. The man stepped back. Just one step, but it felt like a victory. "This isn't over," he said, his composure returning. "He belongs to us, to our kind. A human like you can't possibly understand what he is, what he needs." "He needs warmth," I said. "Safety, love. Not to be thrown away like garbage." Something shifted in the man's expression. Thrown away. His eyes darted toward the hotel, then back to me. "Who put him in the trash?" Before I could answer, a shout came from the end of the alley. A security guard from the hotel, flashlight beam cutting through the snow. "Hey, what's going on down there?" The man's head snapped toward the voice, then back to me. His lips curled in a snarl, revealing teeth that seemed too sharp, too white. "I'll find you," he promised. "Both of you." Then he was gone, moving with inhuman speed into the shadows. The security guard approached, his flashlight beam bouncing wildly. "Ma'am, are you all right?" I couldn't answer. My legs finally gave out, and I slid down the wall to the snow-covered ground, still clutching the baby to my chest. The guard reached us, his flashlight illuminating the bundle in my arms. "Jesus Christ," he muttered. "Is that a baby?" I nodded, unable to form words. The infant had gone quiet again, his eyes closed, but his body still radiated that unnatural heat, pulsing against my frozen core like a second heartbeat. The guard was speaking into his radio, calling for help, for an ambulance. His words faded into background noise as I stared down at the child in my arms. The blanket had fallen away from his face. In the harsh beam of the flashlight, I could see him clearly for the first time. His skin was pale, almost translucent, with blue veins visible beneath the surface. His features were delicate, perfect, too perfect. As I watched, a drop of melted snow fell from my hair onto his cheek. Instead of rolling off, it sizzled against his skin, evaporating instantly. "What are you?" I whispered again. His eyes opened. In the direct light, they weren't just dark, they were bottomless, ancient, knowing. No newborn had eyes like that. The guard was pulling off his coat, trying to wrap it around us both. I barely noticed. All I could see were those eyes. All I could feel was that burning heat seeping into my frozen body. I made a decision then, though I didn't fully understand it. This child was mine to protect now. Whatever he was, wherever he had come from, he had been entrusted to me. I tucked him inside my coat, against my bare skin, gasping as his unnatural heat seared my flesh. But I didn't pull away. I clung to him, this strange burning infant, as his warmth spread through my veins like liquid fire. And in that moment, I knew two things with absolute certainty. This child wasn't human, and he was the only thing keeping me alive in this killing cold. The guard's radio crackled with static as I clutched the burning child to my chest. My body trembled, not from cold now, but from a strange electric sensation where his skin touched mine. The heat radiated through my torso, thawing frozen blood vessels that ached as they expanded. "Ma'am, I need you to let me see the baby," the guard said, reaching toward us. I instinctively turned away, shielding the child with my body. "No, he's sensitive to the cold." The lie came easily, though my teeth still chattered. How could I explain what I didn't understand myself? The guard's flashlight beam wavered. "The ambulance is coming. Just stay here." But something primal whispered that we couldn't stay. The child's eyes, those ancient knowing eyes, held mine, and I felt a pressure in my mind, like the gentle push of a thought that wasn't my own. Danger. I glanced toward the park entrance. Through the swirling snow, I caught movement, dark figures approaching, their outlines blurred by the storm. They moved with unnatural speed and purpose, cutting through the blizzard as if it were merely a mild inconvenience. "I need to go," I whispered, struggling to my feet. My muscles screamed in protest, but the child's heat had restored enough function for movement. "Ma'am, you can't." The guard reached for my arm, but I twisted away. "I'm sorry," I gasped, and ran. I plunged deeper into the park, away from the lights, away from help. The rational part of my brain, the part not consumed by the strange certainty that we were being hunted, screamed that I was making a fatal mistake. But the weight of the child against my chest, his impossible heat seeping into my core, silenced that voice. The snow had piled in drifts that reached my knees in places. Each step was a battle, but the burning child kept my core temperature just high enough to function. I could feel my extremities, my fingers and toes still dangerously cold, but my heart pumped steadily, fueled by the supernatural heat against my chest. I reached the far side of the park where the terrain sloped down toward the subway entrance. The station would be closed due to the storm, but the tunnels would provide shelter. Shelter from the cold, from the snow, from whatever was following us. The entrance gates were chained shut, but the emergency exit door beside them had been jimmied open, probably by other homeless people seeking refuge. I squeezed through the gap, careful not to crush the child. The darkness of the subway swallowed us. The only light came from distant emergency fixtures that cast long, eerie shadows across the platform. The air was stale but warmer than outside, a relative paradise compared to the killing cold of the blizzard. My footsteps echoed as I moved deeper into the station. The child made no sound, but I felt his awareness, his alertness, as his eyes tracked the darkness around us. "It's okay," I whispered, though I wasn't sure which of us I was trying to reassure. "We're safe now." I found a maintenance alcove, tucked away from the main platform. Old cleaning supplies and a forgotten worker's jacket had been left behind. I spread the jacket on the concrete floor and carefully laid the child down. In the dim emergency lighting, I could study him properly for the first time. His features were delicate, but somehow wrong, too perfect, too symmetrical. His skin glowed with an inner light that seemed to pulse with each heartbeat. And those eyes, they followed my movements with an intelligence that no infant should possess. "What are you?" I asked again, my voice barely audible. He didn't answer, couldn't answer, but his tiny hand reached up and touched my cheek. The contact sent a jolt through me, a flash of something, not images exactly, but impressions, danger, pursuit, protection. I pulled back, gasping. "Are they after you, those people in the park?" The child's eyes seemed to darken, pupils expanding until they consumed the iris entirely, My hands shook as I unwrapped him from his blanket to check for injuries. His skin was unmarked, perfect, and hot to the touch, like holding my hands near a flame. I noticed something else too, a small pendant around his neck, half hidden by the blanket. It was made of a dark metal I couldn't identify, inscribed with symbols that seemed to shift when I tried to focus on them. "Leo," I whispered, reading the name engraved on the back of the pendant. "Is that you? Are you Leo?" The child's eyes fixed on mine, and I felt that strange pressure in my mind again, acknowledgement. "Okay, Leo," I said, rewrapping him in his blanket. "I don't know what's happening, but I'm going to keep you safe." A distant noise echoed through the tunnels, footsteps, multiple sets, moving with purpose. Leo's tiny body tensed in my arms. "They followed us," I breathed, panic rising in my throat. I gathered Leo against my chest and pressed deeper into the alcove, hoping the shadows would conceal us. The footsteps grew louder, accompanied by voices, low, urgent murmurs that didn't sound entirely human. "The tracker shows the prince is here," one voice said. "Closer now. Find him. Kill anyone with him." Prince. They were looking for a child, for Leo, and they called him a prince. My heart hammered against my ribs. I needed to move, to find a better hiding place. The maintenance tunnels would be a maze. If I could reach them, we might lose our pursuers. I crept out of the alcove, keeping to the shadows along the wall. The emergency lights cast just enough illumination to navigate without stumbling. Leo remained eerily silent against my chest, his heat the only indication he was alive. The voices echoed from the main platform, spreading out as they searched. I reached a service door and pushed it open, wincing at the soft creak of rusted hinges. The maintenance tunnel beyond was pitch black. I fumbled in my pocket for my lighter, the one luxury I allowed myself, even when I couldn't afford food. The tiny flame illuminated a narrow passageway lined with pipes and electrical conduits. I moved as quickly as I dared, one hand holding the lighter, the other cradling Leo against me. The tunnel branched and forked, and I chose directions at random, hoping to lose myself in the labyrinth beneath the city. The lighter's flame flickered, casting monstrous shadows on the curved walls. My breath came in visible puffs. It was colder here, away from the relative warmth of the station. I could feel the chills seeping back into my extremities as we moved farther from the main tunnels. Leo's heat kept my core warm, but it wasn't enough to combat the deepening cold of the maintenance passages. My fingers grew numb, making it difficult to hold the lighter. I stumbled, nearly dropping it, and the flame went out. Darkness engulfed us. I fumbled to relight it, but my fingers were too stiff to work the mechanism. "Shit," I whispered, the word forming a cloud in the freezing air. I pressed on in the darkness, one hand trailing along the wall for guidance. The cold intensified with each step, as if we were walking into a freezer. My thoughts began to slow, a dangerous sign of hypothermia returning. Leo squirmed against me, his heat flaring momentarily. It brought a flash of clarity to my mind, enough to realize we needed to turn back toward the main tunnels. We couldn't survive in this cold. I reversed direction, moving faster now, desperate to find warmth. My foot caught on something, a pipe, a tool I couldn't see, and I fell hard, twisting to protect Leo from the impact. My shoulder slammed into the concrete, sending shards of pain through my frozen body. I lay there, stunned, the child clutched to my chest. The fall had knocked what little breath I had from my lungs. As I gasped for air, I realized Leo's heat was fading. His tiny body trembled against mine. "No, no, no," I murmured, struggling to sit up. Stay with me, Leo. Stay warm. I unzipped my coat and tucked him directly against my skin again, but my own body temperature had dropped too low to help him. For the first time, I felt fear not for myself, but for this strange child who had been thrust into my care. I forced myself to my feet, swaying with exhaustion and cold. The darkness was absolute, but I could feel a subtle change in the air, a draft that might lead back to the main tunnels. I followed it, one painful step at a time, until a distant emergency light appeared like a beacon in the blackness. I staggered toward it, emerging onto a different platform than the one we'd entered from. This station was deeper, older, with tiled walls covered in decades of grime. The emergency lighting cast a sickly yellow glow over everything. I collapsed onto a bench, shivering violently. Leo's heat had diminished to a faint warmth, barely perceptible against my skin. His eyes, when they met mine, were dulled, the ancient awareness in them flickering like a dying flame. "What do you need?" I pleaded, cradling his face in my numb hands. "How do I help you?" His gaze drifted to the side, toward the dark tunnel where the tracks disappeared. I followed his look and saw nothing at first, then caught a flicker of movement, a shadow detaching itself from the greater darkness. They had found us. I lurched to my feet, searching frantically for a weapon, an escape route, anything. My hand closed around a piece of metal, a section of pipe that had broken off from somewhere above. I gripped it tightly, though my fingers could barely feel its weight. More shadows emerged from the tunnel, taking human form as they stepped into the dim light. 3 men in dark clothing, moving with predatory grace. Their faces were pale, bloodless, with eyes that reflected the emergency lights like animals. "The prince," one of them said. His voice the same I'd heard earlier. "Give him to us, and we might let you live." I backed away, pipe raised. "Stay back." They exchanged glances, amusement on their inhuman faces. "The human is dying anyway," another said, sniffing the air. "I can smell the cold in her blood." He was right. Despite Leo's heat, hypothermia was reclaiming me. My vision blurred at the edges, and my limbs felt disconnected from my body. But a fierce protectiveness burned through the cold, giving me strength I shouldn't have had. "You can't have him," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. The first man, their leader, I guessed, stepped forward. "The child belongs to our master. He is not yours to keep, human." "He was given to me," I insisted, though I had no idea if this was true. "I'm protecting him." The leader's laugh was like ice cracking. "Protecting, you can barely stand." As if to prove his point, my knees buckled. I caught myself on the bench, still holding the pipe in front of me like a shield. Leo whimpered. The first sound I'd heard him make, and his body tensed against mine. The 3 men advanced, spreading out to surround us. Their movements were too fluid, too fast, not human. My mind struggled to process what I was seeing through the fog of hypothermia. "Last chance," the leader said. "Give us the prince, and your death will be quick." I looked down at Leo, at his ancient eyes, now wide with what might have been fear. In that moment, I made a choice that defied all logic, all self-preservation. I shrugged out of my coat, my only protection against the cold, and wrapped it fully around Leo, leaving myself in just a thin, tattered sweater. The freezing air hit my exposed skin like a physical blow, but I straightened, holding Leo in one arm and the pipe in the other. "If you want him," I said through chattering teeth, "you'll have to kill me first." The leader's eyes narrowed. "That can be arranged." He moved toward me with inhuman speed, but I was beyond fear now. I swung the pipe with all my remaining strength, catching him across the face. There was a crack, not of the pipe bending, but of his cheekbone breaking. He staggered back, more surprised than hurt. "The human has spirit," one of the others said, circling to my right. I tried to track his movement, but my vision was failing. Black spots danced at the edges of my sight. My skin had taken on a bluish tint, visible even in the poor light. Leo squirmed in my arm, his heat flaring momentarily against the cold that was killing me. I felt that pressure in my mind again, stronger this time, almost desperate. Run. But there was nowhere to run. My body was shutting down, one system at a time. My fingers had lost all feeling, my lips were numb, and my thoughts came slowly, like wading through molasses. The three men closed in, confident now that I posed no real threat. I backed away until I hit the wall. Leo clutched to my chest, the pipe held weakly in front of me. "I won't let you take him," I said, my words slurring. "You have no choice," the leader replied, touching his broken cheekbone with something like respect in his eyes. "But I'll remember your courage when you're gone." I tried to swing the pipe again, but my arm wouldn't respond properly. It fell to my side, the metal clattering on the platform floor. My legs gave out, and I slid down the wall, still cradling Leo against me. The cold had won. My body couldn't fight anymore. But as the men reached for Leo, I curled around him, using the last of my strength to shield him with my dying body. "Please," I whispered, though I didn't know who I was begging. The men, the universe, whatever power had brought Leo to me in the first place. The leader knelt beside me, his cold hand reaching to pry Leo from my frozen arms. "Your protection ends here, human." I closed my eyes, waiting for the final blow, for Leo to be torn from me. Instead, I heard a sound like rushing wind, felt a pressure change in the air that made my ears pop. The leader's hand froze inches from Leo. His head snapped up, eyes widening with what could only be described as terror. "Impossible," he breathed. "He can't have found." The rest of his words were lost as something massive slammed into the platform between us and the three men, with enough force to crack the concrete beneath our feet. My vision, already failing, could make out only a dark shape, larger than a man, moving with terrible purpose. The three attackers scattered like leaves in a storm, but the shape, the presence, pursued with relentless focus. I heard screams, the wet sound of tearing flesh, and then silence. Through dimming consciousness, I was aware of the presence turning toward us. Leo stirred against me, making a soft sound that might have been recognition. My last thought, as darkness claimed me completely, was that I had failed to protect him after all. Something warm and wet splashed across my face. The coppery scent of blood filled my nostrils as I drifted in and out of consciousness. Through half-lidded eyes, I caught glimpses of violence so swift and precise, it seemed choreographed, a dance of death performed by a creature of impossible speed and strength. The dark shape moved like liquid shadow, tearing through the hunters with methodical fury. I heard the wet snap of a spine, saw a head wrenched clean from shoulders, witnessed a heart ripped still beating from a chest. The leader, the one who'd reached for Leo, was lifted by his throat, his feet dangling uselessly above the platform. "You dare touch what is mine." The voice was deep, cultured, and filled with such cold rage, it made the winter air seem warm by comparison. The leader clawed at the hand around his throat. "Hale, we didn't know. The child was unprotected. She protected him." The grip tightened. "A human with nothing stood against three of your kind to shield my son. What does that make you, Thorn?" "Marcus Thorn." The name floated through my fading consciousness. The rival vampire who'd been hunting Leo. "The council will hear." Thorn's protest ended in a gurgle as Adrian, It could only be Adrian, crushed his windpipe. The council already knows. They sanctioned this. Adrian's voice dropped lower. No one touches my family. With a sound like tearing silk, Adrian separated Thorn's head from his body. It hit the concrete with a hollow thud, rolling to stop near my outstretched hand. The eyes still blinked, mouth working soundlessly before the flesh began to blacken and crumble like ancient parchment. I knew it with the strange clarity that comes when the body begins to shut down. The cold had seeped too deep, crystallizing my blood, slowing my heart. Leo whimpered against me, his tiny body still warm despite everything. At least he would live. At least I'd done that much. Heavy footsteps approached. A shadow fell over us. Strong arms gently turned me, cradling my frozen body. I found myself looking up into a face of such severe beauty it seemed carved from marble, high cheekbones, a strong jaw, and eyes that burned with an inner fire. Adrian Hale, the Vampire King, Leo's father. You kept him safe. His voice was softer now, tinged with something like wonder. When everyone else failed him, you, a human with nothing, protected my son. I tried to speak, but my lips were too numb, my tongue too heavy. Adrian seemed to understand anyway. He brushed a strand of hair from my face with surprising tenderness. Your heart is slowing, he said. The cold has taken too much. Leo stirred against me, reaching tiny hands toward his father. Adrian touched his son's cheek with reverence before looking back at me. You're dying for him, Adrian said. Would you live for him too? I didn't understand the question, but I managed the slightest nod. Anything for Leo, anything to ensure the child's safety. Adrian's expression changed, became more resolved. This will hurt, he warned. But then the cold will never touch you again. He bit into his own wrist, tearing the flesh. Dark blood welled from the wound, thicker than human blood, with an iridescent sheen like oil on water. Before I could comprehend what was happening, he pressed the bleeding wrist to my mouth. Drink, he commanded. Take what I offer freely. The first drop hit my tongue like liquid fire. I gasped, instinctively trying to pull away, but Adrian held me firmly. Drink, he repeated. Choose life, Maya Reed. I drank. What choice did I have? What choice would I have made, even knowing what would come? The blood scorched a path down my throat, igniting every nerve ending it touched. This wasn't warmth. This was immolation. I was burning from the inside out, my frozen cells rupturing as supernatural heat flooded my system. I screamed, the sound muffled against Adrian's wrist. Leo began to cry, his wails echoing through the tunnel. Adrian pulled him from my convulsing arms, cradling him against his shoulder while continuing to feed me his blood. The worst is passing, Adrian murmured, though I couldn't imagine how anything could be worse than this. Your heart is fighting now. He was right. My heart, which had been barely fluttering, now pounded against my ribs like a trapped animal. Blood that had been sluggish and crystallizing now raced through my veins, carrying Adrian's power to every extremity. My fingers, which had been numb for hours, now burned with pins and needles so intense, I clawed at the concrete beneath me. Adrian finally withdrew his wrist, the wound already healing before my eyes. He watched me with clinical detachment as I writhed on the platform, my body caught between death and something else, something neither human nor vampire, but a bridge between worlds. The transition is incomplete, he explained, shifting Leo to a more comfortable position. You've taken enough to heal to bind you to me, but not enough to turn. That choice will come later, when you understand what it means. The burning began to subside, replaced by a strange tingling sensation that spread from my core to my limbs. Feeling returned to parts of me I'd thought permanently damaged by the cold. I flexed my fingers, marveling at how they responded without pain. "What did you do to me?" My voice was hoarse but stronger than it had been in days. "I saved you," Adrian said simply. "As you saved my son." He helped me sit up, his touch surprisingly gentle for a creature who had just dismembered 3 men without hesitation. Leo reached for me, his little face scrunched with concern. Adrian allowed the transfer, watching closely as I cradled his son against my chest. "He knows you," Adrian observed. "He trusts you. We've been through a lot together." I stroked Leo's pale curls, noting how they matched his father's. "How did you find us?" Adrian's expression darkened. "I never lost you. My blood runs in Leo's veins. I can sense him anywhere on Earth." His jaw tightened. "But Thorn's people used old magic to mask him. By the time I broke through it, you were already in the tunnels." I looked around at the carnage surrounding us. 3 bodies in various states of dismemberment, already decaying at an accelerated rate. Soon there would be nothing but dust. "What happens now?" I asked, suddenly aware of how vulnerable I still was. Adrian had saved me, but I had no illusions about my position. I was a human who knew too much, who had been given vampire blood, who held the Vampire King's son in her arms. Adrian studied me with those burning eyes. "Now we leave this place. My people are securing the tunnels as we speak. By morning no trace of what happened here will remain." As if summoned by his words, shadows detached from the darkness of the tunnel. 3 figures approached, 2 men and a woman, moving with the same predatory grace as Adrian. They kept their distance, eyes downcast in deference to their king. "Silas," Adrian addressed the tallest of the 3. "The situation?" "Contained, my lord," Silas replied. "We've eliminated 2 more of Thorn's scouts near the south entrance. The council's observers have verified our claim of self-defense and departed. And the human witnesses." My arms tightened instinctively around Leo. Adrian noticed, his lips curving slightly. "Not you," he assured me. "The homeless who might have seen something." "Memories altered as instructed," the female vampire reported. "No casualties." Adrian nodded, satisfied. He rose to his feet in one fluid motion, then extended his hand to me. "Can you stand?" I wasn't sure, but I tried anyway, shifting Leo to one arm while accepting Adrian's help with the other. My legs trembled but held. The vampire blood had done its work. I was weak but no longer dying. "My people will escort us to the surface," Adrian said. "From there we'll go to my residence. You need time to recover properly." "And then what?" I couldn't help asking. "You'll erase my memories too. Make me forget Leo." Something flashed in Adrian's eyes. Anger, perhaps, or surprise at my directness. "Is that what you want, to forget?" The question caught me off guard. Did I want to forget? To return to my life of desperate survival, of endless cold and hunger? To never know what became of the child I'd protected with my life? "No," I admitted. "I don't want to forget." Adrian's expression softened marginally. "Good. Because Leo wouldn't forgive me if I took you from him now." As if understanding his father's words, Leo cooed and patted my cheek with his tiny hand. The gesture brought unexpected tears to my eyes. "Come," Adrian said, more gently than before. "This is no place for my son or his protector." The journey through the tunnels passed in a blur. Adrian's people formed a protective circle around us, alert for any remaining threat. I focused on putting one foot in front of the other, on keeping Leo secure in my arms. The vampire blood had given me strength, but I could feel it beginning to wane, my body still dangerously depleted. Adrian noticed my faltering steps. Without warning, he swept me into his arms, cradling both Leo and me against his chest. I should have protested, some last vestige of pride demanded it, but the relief of not having to fight gravity anymore was too great. "Rest," he murmured. "You've earned it." I must have dozed off, because the next thing I knew, we were emerging from the tunnels into the pre-dawn light. A sleek black SUV waited at the entrance, engine running. Adrian placed me carefully in the back seat, sliding in beside me. Leo remained curled against me, sleeping peacefully now. As the vehicle pulled away from the curb, I caught a glimpse of the city I'd struggled to survive in. The same streets that had been so hostile now sliding past the tinted windows like a different world entirely. "He's never been this calm with anyone else," Adrian observed, watching his son sleep in my arms. "Not even with his caretakers at the compound." "We understand each other," I said simply. "We both know what it's like to be alone in the cold." Adrian's expression changed, something like regret flickering across his features. "He will never know the cold again," he said. "Neither will you." The promise hung between us as the SUV wound its way through the awakening city, eventually turning onto a private road that led to a massive estate on the outskirts. High walls surrounded the property, topped with discreet but undoubtedly lethal security measures. The gates opened automatically as we approached, closing immediately behind us. The main house was a modernist structure of glass and stone, somehow both imposing and elegant. As we pulled into the circular drive, I saw staff already waiting. Human staff, I realized with surprise, though their posture suggested they knew exactly what their employer was. Adrian carried me inside, ignoring my weak protests that I could walk. The interior of the house was warm and surprisingly welcoming, with high ceilings and art-covered walls. He brought me to a suite larger than any apartment I'd ever lived in, with a bedroom, sitting area, and bathroom that could have comfortably housed a family of 4. "You'll stay here while you recover," he said, setting me gently on the edge of the bed. "My personal physician will examine you shortly." "Is your personal physician aware of your dietary requirements?" I asked, unable to keep a hint of sarcasm from my voice. Adrian actually smiled, a brief flash of perfect white teeth that transformed his severe features. "Chen has been with my family for 3 generations. There's very little she doesn't know about vampire physiology and its effects on humans." He reached for Leo, who was still sleeping against my shoulder. I hesitated, reluctant to release him. "He needs to feed," Adrian explained. "And you need to rest without a vampire infant drawing energy from you, however unconsciously." I surrendered Leo with reluctance, watching as Adrian cradled his son with surprising tenderness. The Vampire King and his heir, it was an image I never would have imagined witnessing. "I'll return once you've been seen to," Adrian promised. "We have much to discuss about your future." After he left, everything happened with efficient speed. Dr. Chen, a petite, no-nonsense woman who looked to be in her 60s, arrived with 2 assistants. They examined me thoroughly, took blood samples, and hooked me up to an IV to replenish fluids and electrolytes. "Remarkable recovery from late-stage hypothermia," Dr. Chen muttered, reviewing readings on a tablet. "The master's blood is powerful, but you must have exceptional constitution to respond so well. Will I change?" I asked hesitantly. "Become like him?" Dr. Chen shook her head. "Not from this exposure. You've received enough to heal and create a temporary bond, but true transition requires a complete blood exchange and death." She eyed me clinically. though you came very close to the death part on your own. After the medical team departed, I was left alone in the luxurious suite. I showered, my first hot shower in months, and found clothes laid out for me, soft lounge pants, a cashmere sweater, thick socks. Everything fit perfectly, which was unsettling in its own way. I was sitting in a chair by the window, watching the sun rise fully over the estate grounds, when Adrian returned. He'd changed from his battle-stained clothes into an impeccably tailored suit that probably cost more than I'd earned in my best year as an artist. "Leo?" I asked immediately. "Sleeping peacefully after feeding," Adrian assured me. "His nanny is with him." He took the chair opposite mine, studying me with those intense eyes. "Dr. Chen tells me you're recovering well. The vampire blood will be metabolized completely within a few days, though some effects may linger longer. Effects: enhanced healing, heightened senses, a certain awareness of me." He said this last part carefully, watching for my reaction. I nodded slowly, realizing he was right. Even with my eyes closed, I would have known exactly where he was in the room. I could feel his presence like a heat signature on my consciousness. What happens now? I asked for the second time that night. Adrian leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "That depends on what you want, Maya Reed." The use of my full name startled me. I hadn't told him who I was. "I know everything about you," he said, reading my expression. "From the moment you found Leo, I had my people investigate you. Former art student at Westlake College. Promising career derailed by medical bills after your mother's cancer diagnosis. Evicted 6 months ago when the medical debt consumed everything." I swallowed hard, fighting the urge to defend myself. "And now that you know my sad story, now I offer you a choice." Adrian's voice was level, businesslike. "Option 1. You accept a new identity, a substantial financial settlement, and begin a new life far from here, with no memory of Leo or the events of the past week." My heart contracted painfully at the thought. "And option 2. You stay." The simplicity of the statement belied its implications. "You become part of Leo's life, his human connection in a world that will increasingly pull him toward his vampire nature. You accept my protection and all that comes with it." "All that comes with it," I repeated. "Meaning what?" "Exactly." Adrian's gaze didn't waver. "Meaning you would be bound to my household. You would live here, under my protection. You would have wealth, security, and a purpose helping to raise my son. But you would also be entering a world few humans ever see and fewer survive. Because of the danger. Because of what they become," Adrian corrected. "Humans who live among us either transition eventually or break. The weight of knowing, of seeing behind the veil of normal existence, it changes people." I looked out at the sunlit grounds, so peaceful and beautiful. Somewhere in this massive house, Leo slept, unaware of the choice being laid before me. "Why offer this at all?" I asked finally. "Why not just take your son and erase my memories? It would be simpler." "Simpler, yes." Adrian's voice softened fractionally. "But not better. Leo has formed a bond with you, one I can feel through my connection to him. He trusts you. He feels safe with you. That is unprecedented." He stood, moving to the window to look out at his domain. "Vampire children are rare, Maya, precious beyond measure. Leo's mother died bringing him into this world, a willing sacrifice, but a devastating loss. Since then, he has rejected every caretaker, every potential surrogate, until you." The weight of his words settled over me. So I would be, what? His nanny? His human pet? Adrian turned, his expression unreadable. "You would be whatever he needs you to be. whatever you choose to be, within the constraints of our world. I thought of Leo, his tiny hands, his trusting eyes, the way he'd clung to me in the cold. I thought of returning to my old life, or some version of it, with no memory of him. The choice seemed both impossible and inevitable. If I stay, I said slowly, I want guarantees. I want autonomy. I want to continue my art. Something like respect flickered in Adrian's eyes. Most humans would be begging for the chance by now. I'm not most humans. I kept your son alive when your enemies were hunting him. I nearly died for him. Yes, Adrian agreed. You did. He seemed to come to a decision. You will have your own wing in this house. Staff at your disposal. A studio for your art. An allowance generous enough that you need never worry about money again. And my personal guarantee that you will never be compelled, fed upon, or harmed while under my protection. He extended his hand. Do we have an agreement? I looked at that hand, the same one that had torn men apart hours ago, the same one that had cradled his son with such gentleness. I thought of Leo, of the bond we'd formed in the cold darkness, of the strange new world opening before me. I took Adrian's hand. His skin was warmer than I expected, vibrant with the blood of centuries. We have an agreement, I said. 6 months later, I stood in my studio, watching the sunset paint the estate grounds in gold and crimson. My latest canvas was nearly finished, a study in contrasts, dark and light, cold and warmth. My work had changed since that night in the tunnels, deepened in ways I was still discovering. The door opened behind me. I didn't need to turn to know who it was. That awareness of Adrian had never faded, even after his blood had left my system. Leo is asking for you, he said. He won't sleep until you read to him. I smiled, setting down my brush. The Vampire Prince and his bedtime stories. He's stubborn, Adrian observed. Like someone else I know. Our relationship had evolved over the months from wary allies to something more complex. Not romantic, not exactly, but intimate in a way that transcended conventional definitions. We were bound by Leo, by blood, by choices made in darkness and honored in light. I wiped my hands on a cloth and turned to face him. Adrian looked the same as always, timeless, powerful, contained, but I'd learned to read the subtle shifts in his expression, the minute tells that revealed his thoughts. You're worried about something, I said. He inclined his head slightly. The council is meeting tonight. There are rumors of dissent among the older clans. Some believe my allowing a human to raise the heir shows weakness. Let them come, I said with more confidence than I might have felt 6 months ago. They'll find this human has learned a few things. Adrian's lips curved in that rare smile. Yes, they would. He offered his arm in a gesture both courtly and familiar. Shall we go see our son? Our son. The words no longer startled me as they once had. In this strange new life, I had found something I'd never expected. A family forged in the coldest night and tempered in blood and fire. As we walked through the halls of what had become my home, I caught our reflection in one of the many mirrors, the vampire king and the human woman who had saved his heir, moving in perfect synchrony, neither fully of the other's world, but creating something new between them. Outside, the last light of day gave way to the first stars of evening. Inside, warmth and safety waited in the form of a small boy, with his father's pale curls and eyes that held both human compassion and vampire fire. I had chosen this life, with all its dangers and wonders. I had chosen Leo, and in that choice, I had finally found where I belonged, not in the cold tunnels of survival, but in the warm embrace of a family unlike any other. The cold would never touch us again.